Hello, my name is Fraser Hughes, CEO of Glio. I'm really pleased to introduce another episode in our series of investor CEO interviews. Today, question master will be Rodney Clayton of Duff Phelps Investment Management from Chicago. And Rodney will be interviewing Chris Womack, who is president and CEO of Southern Company, who are headquartered in Atlanta, and also the second largest regulated utility in the FT Wilshire Glio Global Listed Infrastructure Index. Guys, over to you.
Thanks, Fraser, and thanks to Glio for everything you do for the infrastructure sector and the investment community. Chris, it's great to be with you today.
Rodney, it's always a pleasure to see you. Hope you're doing well in Chicago.
Absolutely, same to you. Maybe we could start off with, if you could just give an introduction to Southern Company, maybe for those that are not as familiar.
As you know, we're one of the largest utility holding companies in the U.S. and with a deep focus on clean, safe, reliable, and affordable power to all of our customers. And we operate some 3 electric, vertically integrated, regulated businesses here in the Southeast, but also we have 4 LDCs across the country as well, gas distribution businesses, with a deep focus on customer service. We have some 9 million customers across those businesses with a real strong focus on customer service, customer satisfaction, high quality customer delivery, also with a real deep focus on operational excellence and operational performance. And we're also fortunate, and it's a real deep commitment of ours as well, this focus on making sure we have these wonderful constructive regulatory environments which serve us well. And so that's kind of who we are. We've got a $48 billion 5-year capital plan, which really supports our focus on being this sustainable, regular, and predictable delivery of earnings, which also feeds into our 5 to 7% growth rate on earnings. And so all of that comes together with supporting this strong balance sheet that we have that I think really probably one of the best in the industry, if not the best, which helps us through no matter what the times may look like, this real solid balance sheet. And then lastly, I also have to speak to our dividend philosophy and kind of where we've been and kind of where we are. We provided a dividend for the last 77 years at or greater than the previous year. And for the past 23 years, we've increased our dividends. And so I think it's an incredibly remarkable performance on the part of this company. And it speaks to kind of where we are and the value proposition that we offer. So just a lot of good things going on here at Southern Company.
That's great. Maybe let's start with demand growth. You know, Southern is seeing tremendous demand growth at this point for power, you know, particularly in Georgia, but it seems to now also be spreading out to some of your other territories. And what's really driving that demand growth that you're seeing in your territory?
Yeah, Rodney, you're right. I mean, we're seeing tremendous economic activity. We've always been very strong and started actually some of the early economic development departments here at Georgia Power and at Alabama Power. So this has been a real focus of ours for a large part of the history of this company. Right now, we're seeing unprecedented economic activity across our businesses. We've seen it in Georgia. We continue to see activity, strong activity in Alabama as well as Mississippi. If you look at Georgia Power filed an updated RFP last fall, and they got a resolution on that here in the springtime of this year, really focused on this new growth. A large portion of that is in fact data centers, but it's also manufacturing. Hyundai electric vehicle infrastructure facility down around Savannah. You see incredible expansion by Gulfstream down in the Savannah area as well. Additional activities around the port in Savannah, Port of Mobile. Meta recently made an announcement of a project in Alabama. So just a lot of solid growth that we see all across our territory. That's really exciting, and it's what we say, it's incredibly unprecedented.
Great. You know, a key question in your recent IRP filing in Georgia, which you just alluded to, was the level of confidence that that demand is actually going to show up. How do you get confident that you aren't overestimating the opportunity that's in front of you today?
Yeah, once again, I think the experiences that we have of working through these kind of projects before, I mean, and just going back to the growth, we've been seeing something right around 1.5% growth. But with this activity that we're seeing now, we're looking out into the latter part of this decade, growth on average across our entire system of around 6%, but in Georgia, around 9%. But as we look at these projects, there's an incredible diligence process that, I mean, companies are always looking at different locations in different states. And so we factor that in, but we take them through a funnel of process of them making decisions about locations, them making decisions about suppliers of energy, and then those requests for services. If you look at kind of the filing at Georgia last year with the request, we saw a demand increase of about 6,600 megawatts. I mean, and that capacity has been fully subscribed, and we're seeing even more. But we work to make sure that we kind of do a full-fledged risk mitigation process to make sure that we're pretty certain about these projects that are forthcoming and that they are in fact real. And so feel good about the rigor that we put into that process and making sure that, we're not just chasing customers that may not show up and move somewhere else. So feel real good about our process to make sure that we know that these projects, these customers are real and they are in fact coming to our territory.
All right, those are impressive numbers for sure. Some investors might question whether all this data center demand growth is healthy for the utilities. They'll say, it's not going to materially impact earnings on one hand, and it doesn't have good secondary impacts, for example, leading to significant population growth. What would you say to those investors, those people who have this view?
I mean, Rodney, I have to tell you, for a utility company to have customers that want electricity 24/7 all the time, it's a wonderful way to have this demand that is constant, and thus you have the opportunity to spread these kilowatts across this large base. And thus also, as you price these projects, you have the opportunity. We make sure we understand what marginal costs look like and doing all that analysis to make sure that as we operate our system, as we price this load, we have these customers that we understand what their costs are and we charge them for that cost. And so thus, we don't have to spread that across the entire system, the entire base. So these customers provide a wonderful benefit, a wonderful utilization of the resources of our system in providing services to them, but also providing benefit and value to the entire system. So it's a mutual beneficial opportunity with these data center customers, with their kind of what their needs are. As we look at what the utilization process and their rates look like, it's just mutually beneficial for them, but also to the rest of the customers on our system.
So good points. For an investor in the utility sector, regulatory relationships are very critical. And, that's one thing that Southern is really known for, is having extremely strong relationship with regulators across multiple jurisdictions. Would love for you to talk about how you've been able to achieve that and maintain that over the years.
And Rodney, that also goes back to this deep commitment that I refer to very often. And it starts with the focus on customers and that high quality level of service that you provide customers. And we use language and we believe that customers are at the center of everything that we do. And if we stay focused on that priority, from a service standpoint, from an operational standpoint, if we do that from a pricing standpoint, if we do that on an ongoing regular basis, that's what I think is fundamental in terms of maintaining this constructive regulatory environment all across all of our territories. And we feel real good about that. I think the other thing that we have to make sure that we continue to do is be a good citizen, be a good corporate citizen in the communities where we are privileged to serve and operate. And so the deep roots that we have with the members of our team, of our companies, leading a lot of community endeavors, doing things to make the communities better, making those kinds of investments. I think those things go hand in hand because that's what our regulators expect from us and want us to see, the deep commitment we have to making our communities better, the leadership roles we play on economic development. And so across the board, our employees are there. I mean, they're leaders in every aspect of these communities. And so I think when you add all that up in terms of the service we provide and the quality of service we provide to our customers with this community investment, helping the communities grow, helping the school systems be better. I think all of those things kind of feed into making sure that we have this constructive, wonderful, positive regulatory relationship with our regulators. And it serves us well, and it serves the regulators and the commissions well also. I mean, so once again, I mean, it's kind of who we are, what we have been doing for decades, and things that we continue to do, even in the period of this kind of the dynamic evolution and changes that we're seeing with this incredibly unprecedented demand. We still have to make sure that the customers are at the center of everything that we do. And if we do that, this kind of model that we have, relationships that we have, I think will continue to serve all of us very well.
All right, great. Let's talk about nuclear. You recently brought on America's first 2 nuclear units in about 30 years, which is extremely impressive. You've been vocal about how America really shouldn't let another 30 years go by without building new nuclear units. Why do you think that's so important for the country, and then what can be done to facilitate a cycle of new builds across the industry?
Rodney, I always have to start out with, I mean, it's an incredibly proud moment for us, for Southern Company, to bring these 2 units online. Yeah, it was an arduous journey, and we know that. But to demonstrate that we as a company can do hard things, that our employees can do and solve difficult, complex challenges, I think is just a great contribution for this company, and kind of demonstrates kind of who we are and the things that we are committed to do. I mean, when you look at this demand that we see across the country and the demand we see in our territory, we always say, man, there's got to be a diverse mix of resources available to meet this growing demand. I do think that nuclear has got to be a part of that mix, and this country should not wait another 30 years to build another nuclear plant. And so, I mean, yeah, I talk a lot about what needs to happen going forward to making sure that in partnership with the government, there are incentives, there are understandings of what risks need to be mitigated in terms of cost overrun insurance, some upfront incentives, loan guarantees, a lot of things that were a part of our project at Plant Vogtle. But making sure these things are being done and making sure that we're creating the momentum to make this a reality, and not just having one-off projects, but we're having projects all across the country, whether it's 10 new projects of AP1000s, also investments in advanced nuclear, small modular reactors. I think this country has got to make this kind of commitment, and the government has got to be a great partner to get this momentum started and keep it going, and making sure that we have the workforce, making sure we have the supply chain, making sure we have the labor force, the skilled labor force we need to make this a reality all across the country. And so I'm excited about it, and I'm going to keep talking about it, keep working with policymakers all across the country to hopefully keep this going, build on the momentum of Vogtle 3 and 4, and continue this effort and see more projects get started and come online in this country in the future. I think it's very, very important. I mean, I say a lot. I mean, the energy security of this country supports our national security, but also feeds in and is very critical to the economic security of this country. And we've got to make sure that this country continues to have the energy resources that it needs. And I think it must be diverse, but nuclear's got to be a real big part of it.
Indeed. Southern investors right now, we're awaiting an updated capital plan from you following your, IRP updated approval in Georgia recently. Your existing plan included a minimal amount of new equity issuance. Maybe if you could talk just a little bit about what your general approach is to funding all of your growth and also managing your balance sheet overall.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, I think if we don't have the best, I think we're right at the top in terms of the quality of our balance sheet, and you look on the credit side, but also on the equity side. And we know we have some equity needs we'll have to issue, about $350 million, and then we have the opportunity to turn on our internal plans. Our ATM opportunities are available to us, and so I mean that's what we'll do. I mean, so once again, I think we have the strength, we have the capacity to do this, to meet our needs, to support. We increased our capital budget to $48 billion for the next 5 years, which feeds into our earnings trajectory. And so once again, having the cash flow coming in after the Vogtle projects went online puts us in just a very strong position going forward. And so I think we have a solid plan going forward, and we'll continue to build that out as we move into the future.
Okay. Final question. 2025, big year in Georgia for you. You've got a rate case upcoming, and that's your regular IRP cycle year. So just talk maybe a little bit about what your outlook is going into such an important year for Southern.
No, it really is. And the thing that I'm excited about with Southern Company is that we have these orderly processes that I feel good that will help us make sure we respond to the near-term needs that we see, but also put us in a place to deal with the ongoing longer-term demands that we see forthcoming. And that's what's afforded to us in this integrated resource plan that Georgia will file in January, and we'll get a decision sometime in July. And then subsequently coming behind that, there will be the triennial rate case that Georgia has every 3 years in terms of funding and paying for these investment opportunities. And so clearly we'll see increased demand that's reflected in announcements that we see and that we know about beyond what we filed and got approved in this updated plan here earlier in April. I mean, so I think it's more to come, but I think the good thing about it and what we have the opportunity to show is the orderly process, the disciplined nature in terms of how we will deal with this unprecedented growth and the opportunities that it presents for our company into the future. And all of this just feeds into our ability, I think, to lengthen and strengthen and deepen the value proposition that we offer as a company in terms of the solid earnings opportunities and the growth that we have in front of us. I think it extends the opportunity and the value proposition that we bring to the market.
Great. Chris, any final remarks?
No, Rodney, I just got to say, it's an exciting time for Southern Company. Completing and bringing online the Vogtle units, and they're operating very well. And when you see the growth opportunities that we've seen thus far, and that we see coming in the future, is just an exciting time. But more importantly, I think it's the opportunity and with this deep focus on customers and having this constructive regulatory environment that we have, our ability to meet this demand, to make sure we have resources available to meet this unprecedented growth, and to be able to serve it in a way that benefits all of our customers. And so it's an exciting time. Feel real good about where we are and really excited about the future. So thanks for giving me this opportunity to talk about Southern Company and where we are. We've got a great story. We got a great business, and we're doing very well. We're going to continue to make sure that we keep our customers at the center of everything that we do.
Great. Chris, it's been a pleasure.
Rodney, it's always good to see you.
Thanks, Rodney, and thanks, Chris, for your Q&A session. Last point, my side. This week, we published the 15th edition of the Glio Journal, which you can now download from here. So if you choose the link on the image on your screen, you should be able to download the journal. If you have any questions about the journal, if you have any questions about membership, please get in contact with me on the email below. Thanks for listening.